here. One of the recent questions that I've been getting, and something that I'm trying to troubleshoot with a few athletes, is how to, one, properly make bar body contact with the bar in the clean, and then how to initiate the drive downward with the legs so that we're keeping the bar close, yet still getting full extension. So I'm going to talk about a couple things that I've been seeing recently and how we can troubleshoot and try a few different drills to help you work through that. So one of the first things I'm going to talk about is foot balance, because everything is going to start from the ground up, and the way we connect our feet to the ground is the way we're going to be able to move our body further up the chain. So what tends to happen is that as athletes get to the knee and start to continue on towards the top of the leg, is that they'll shift their weight too far back in the heel. That weight is going to have to move backwards, but if we lose it and it starts to go too far because you're trying really hard to get your knees out of the way, then there's going to be a compensatory movement at the top when you get to that scoop that's going to shift your weight too far forward towards the toes, often leading you to prematurely raise the heels, maybe jump forward, or there's a shift in the opposite direction where you end up jumping backwards because you're trying to correct that fault. So the first part, the important part, is that we're maintaining full foot contact throughout the pull, particularly as we go around the knees. So even though those knees are shifting backwards, you're not going so far that you lose the grip of the floor with your toes. So I want you to really take some time and feel where that full foot contact is. And then as you stand from there, even though the knees are shifting forward slightly, the hips are shifting forward, we're not going so far that you've now lost that pressure in the heel. So number one is maintaining balance and full foot contact throughout the whole pull. Number two is going to be where you make contact with the bar. So what's important is that we are getting that clean towards the top of the thigh. If you're an athlete with longer arms, talk to your coach about this, but there may be a situation in which we want to start to initiate that pull a little bit early. It's a very, very specific thing. But ideally, we want to find that extension from the top of the thigh because it's going to create the fastest turnover. It's going to allow me to move under the bar the quickest way possible. It's also going to help me produce a lot more speed, right? If I make contact with the bar a lot lower, then I'm going to have to work so much harder to get myself to pull and get underneath that bar. It's going to be a slower turnover. There's a number of different things that can happen. So as you're practicing going from the knee to that power position, you want to keep in mind that your shoulders are going to stay covering the bar up until we get here. And again, I'm getting that bar all the way to the top of the thigh. The next thing, and you'll notice this as I'm warming up, is that my shoulders are staying forward or on top of the bar until I get to that power position. What's not happening is getting my shoulder behind the bar prematurely, right? Sometimes I'll see this with that early scoop. If we look at the front of the shoulder capsule relative to the bar, if I start to sit back early, my shoulders are going to be behind the bar prematurely, and that's also where I'm going to get that low contact point with the bar. So I want to focus on keeping a full foot, pushing down with my legs, and trying to stand straight up while maintaining my bar or my shoulders slightly in front of my bar or right on top. That's going to vary just based on your torso length. Okay, so that's our third point that we're going to think about, is shoulder relative to bar as I'm standing up. Here's a little bit of what I'm seeing recently. In some of my newer athletes, because they're so focused on staying over the bar, when they get to extension, they don't actually fully extend their hip, right? I'm seeing a lot of like leg drive, but their hips don't fully open and they don't get their chest out of the way. We do at some point in the lift get your shoulders behind the bar, because that creates space for you to pull yourself under and make sure that we're able to finish really hard with the legs. You have to remember, you are moving your whole body as a system. It's not just your body moving and the bar moving independently. We're always working against the floor with the connection to the barbell. So as I get to here, what I'm seeing a little bit of in some athletes is pushing down with the legs, but not fully opening the hip and getting the shoulders out of the way. Inversely, what I see from some other athletes is that they are getting the shoulders behind the bar a little bit early and then pushing that bar away from them, so it creates a lot more horizontal displacement. What we want to start to time is that as you get to this power position here, right, bar at the top of the thigh, Ideally, my feet are flat, my shoulders are stacked over the bar. Then from here, I am getting triple extension of my ankle by pushing through the floor, my knee by driving through my quads, and my hips. It all has to extend open at the same time. And I'm gonna finish here, slightly behind the bar, because in order for me to get that triple extension and remain balanced, I do have to counterbalance the weight a little bit. So, how can you practice doing this? How do you practice the timing of getting everything in that lower body to extend at the same time, making sure that it drives the bar upwards, that we're not extending the knee or flexing the knee more and pushing through the ankle, premature to the hip, right? You don't want to end up here. Or how do we focus on straightening the legs and also getting the hip to extend so you get your torso out of the way? So one of the things that we can practice is going to be a slow, clean extension, right? You're going to extend all the way to the top. For this first version, I'm going to have you keep your feet flat so that we don't have the tendency to rock onto the toes early. And then you just want to focus on fully locking out the legs, opening the hips. And again, in order to maintain system balance, your shoulders will end up slightly behind the bar. Because if the bar is forward and your shoulders are forward, then your balance will be forward. We're going to go from your power position, right? Shoulders on top of the bar, back nice and tight. From here, you stand up, shrug, and finish, right? So we're looking for downward drive with the legs, squeezing of the quads and glutes. Okay, so that's going to teach us double extension essentially, right? We're extending the knee, we're extending the hip, we're not quite getting that ankle yet. So that's what we're going to tack on next, is as you go to extend the knee and the hip, we're going to time everything moving upwards at the same time by adding in the ankle joint. If you look at really, really high level lifters, one of the things they do best is timing out this extension so that one joint is not preceding the other, that everything's kind of firing at the same time. Same power position to start. Up. All these movements, there's a shrugging motion because I'm initiating that pull of my body downward by moving with my arms. So we've practiced extending 2 joints at a time. We've practiced extending 3 joints at a time. Now we're going to add a jump. One of my favorite drills to practice here is something called a dip jump. Once all of that starts to feel a little bit more cohesive, then we're going to start to initiate the pull under. So you're going to do the same thing. We're going to start in the power position. You're going to dip to that appropriate spot, and you're going to jump, pull with your upper body, pull with your arms. So we're pulling ourselves under and receive in a power clean position. Dip power cleans are a technical exercise I like to use a lot to help athletes primer that movement, but we can break it down even further into smaller bite-sized pieces so we start to teach particular elements of that hip extension and timing of the leg drive. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Subscribe for more content that comes out weekly, either on technique or mobility as it relates to the lift. See you next time.